Now, in this technical demonstration, we're going to move to multi-factor authentication, or MFA. Now, within the Centrify identity platform, MFA can be applied at different levels. We can apply multi-factor authentication globally. We can also apply multi-factor authentication at an individual resource level, and we can even apply multi-factor authentication during the login process to gain access to the identity platform. Now, multi-factor authentication is going to be used to validate the user's identity. So it's going to be important that we understand the different challenge options that we have within the process. Now, multi-factor authentication is done through a series of steps, and we're going to go through those steps right now, starting with the authentication profile. So under settings, we'll click on authentication. And as you can see here, we do have 3 default authentication profiles. These are built into the platform once it's installed. But we're going to add a new one. So we're going to start by adding this new one. We're going to call this one GreenSafe MFA. So we can identify it as an organizational multi-factor authentication profile. And as you can see here, we have a number of challenges. There's challenge 1 and challenge 2, all with the same information: password, mobile authenticator, phone call, text message, email confirmation code, OAuth OTP, third-party radius, FIDO2, and security questions. You'll also notice that there is a challenge pass-through duration. Basically what this means is, once I've satisfied the multi-factor authentication, it will stay intact and I won't be prompted again for this duration of time. If you want to force MFA for every request that's made to every resource, then you can change this to no pass-through. So let's go through and create this profile and configure it for passwords and security questions. Now, this is a very simple MFA challenge. We'll start with the password, and then we can go to security questions here, identifying the number of questions that the user must answer. So we'll go ahead and save this, and now we can apply this to a particular policy. Now, policies are a little bit different. Policies can apply to users, roles, or individual resources. So for this particular portion of the demonstration, we're going to focus on systems and accounts. So let's go ahead and move back over to our resources menu and click on systems. So what we're going to do here is we're going to apply multi-factor authentication to the secure remote login for one of our servers. And we'll go ahead and select the DB Unix server. And we will move over to policy. And as you can see here, we do have system login challenge rules. Go ahead and scroll down a little bit, and we can identify specific conditions that must apply. Now, if they don't apply, then we apply a system login profile. This will be an authentication profile. And we'll go ahead and apply the GreenSafe MFA. Now, it's important to note that with the system login challenge rules or authentication rules, we can specify a condition that applies to a specific authentication profile. But for this demonstration, we're going to simply apply MFA universally for this particular system when they try to log in. So let's go ahead and click Save. And now that we've applied MFA, we want to make sure that the users who are going to use this system have satisfied those particular challenges. Remember, we applied the challenge as the password and a security question. Now, in the case of Alex Foster, we have already set up a security question. So I'm going to simply click on the Actions link, and I'm going to click Select, and I'm going to select the Helpdesk-A account. And what you'll notice is that I'm now being prompted for my password. I'll go ahead and enter it. And now I'm being prompted for multi-factor authentication in the form of a security question. I'll go ahead and answer the question. And now that I've satisfied the MFA, I can now log in with privilege. As you can see here, I am logged in as the helpdesk-a account, but I had to satisfy multi-factor authentication as Alex Foster in order to gain that privilege. So let's now apply this to password checkout. In order to do that, we need to apply it to an account. So we'll move over to accounts, and we'll continue working with the DB Unix accounts and the DB Unix server. So from here, I'm going to select the helpdesk-a account for the DB Unix server. I'll move over to policy, and once again, I can satisfy authentication rules or simply select a default password checkout profile. If we want to make sure that multi-factor authentication is applied for any request for a checkout, then we would set it up under this condition for this particular resource. Once again, I'll select the GreenSafe MFA and we'll click Save. And when I right-click on the help desk and when I click on Show Password, I'm now prompted for my multi-factor once again. So it's important that you recognize how you want to set up multi-factor authentication at any level within the environment. We'll be prompted for our MFA challenge, which in this case is a security question. And now I can see my password. Let's go ahead and take a look at this from a secret perspective. So let's go ahead and click Close. And we'll move over to Secrets. And I'm going to choose the alarm code. And once again, under Policy, I'm going to set the default challenge profile for secrets to the GreenSafe MFA. We'll click Save. And now from here, I'll just use the Actions link to retrieve the alarm code. I'll click Show Text. And again, I'm prompted for MFA. Now, as you configure multi-factor authentication, you may require or you may want to use a pass-through duration. This prevents the need to enter in MFA challenges for each resource. But if it's a sensitive resource, you can force that to be a no pass-through, which means any request that's made for a resource must require it. So now what we'll do is let's apply MFA at a different level. Now at this point, we've focused our MFA on individual resources. Let's now do this at a more global level when they log in. So let's go back to authentication under settings, and we're going to create a new MFA profile. Now this one's going to be for the login. So we'll call this one GreenSafe Login MFA profile. Now for this one, we're only going to select security questions. And we're going to allow for a 5-minute pass-through, which means MFA will not be prompted for 5 minutes if it's been satisfied. We'll go ahead and click OK. And now from here, we're going to move over to the Access menu. Now, when we click on Policies, this will apply to users. You'll notice we do have one default policy. Now, it's always recommended that if you're going to make modifications that are going to be for specified roles, that you go ahead and you create a new policy. Remember, policies are cumulative. They are not restrictive, which means that if I have a setting applied in one policy that's enabled, disabling it in another policy does not create a conflict. It also does not restrict that particular setting. So let's go ahead and create a new policy set. And what we'll do is we'll call this one the GreenSafe Login Policy. Now, we don't want this to apply to everyone. We only want this to apply to contractors. So we'll go ahead and specify the role, and I'll click Add. And from here, I'm only going to focus on the contractor's role. And we'll click Add. Now, what we want to do is we want to apply this to the authentication when they log in to the identity platform. So let's go ahead and do that. Under Authentication, we'll go to Centrify Services. And we're going to enable authentications for this policy control. And as you can see here, we do have our authentication rules, which we can set, and a default policy. So from here, we will select the green safe login MFA profile. And then we'll click Save. And now we have our login policy. So now let's take a look at our contractors. Now the contractors have already satisfied their security questions, meeting the MFA challenges. So now let's see how this is going to affect them when they log in. So now let's log in as one of the contractors. We're going to log in as Laura Bennett. So we'll log in with her login account. And as you can see here, it's prompted us for a security question. That means that MFA has in fact been applied. Now you'll notice that the password was not indicated. That's because our authentication profile only asked for a security question. But we want to make sure that the password is used. So let's make sure that we adjust that profile properly. So let me move back over to Alex Foster. And we're not going to modify the policy, we're only going to modify the profile. So we'll go back to Authentication under Settings, and we'll open up our Login MFA profile. As you can see here, we only selected security questions. So let's go ahead and modify this so that security questions are prompted as a second challenge. We'll keep the number at 1 with the same pass-through, but we are also going to add in the password. So now we'll click OK. And we'll move back over to Laura Bennett, and we're going to log out, and we'll log in again. And now as you can see, this is what we wanted. We wanted a password along with the security question. And now we're authenticated properly. Now in this particular instance, we made the mistake of not adding the password, but it was very simple to correct. So it's always a good idea when you're testing multi-factor authentication, you do this with an account that has no privilege, but can still satisfy the MFA challenges as you go through the testing process.